Hello, this is Pens and John Paul. We are a writing group. Each year we get together and with a number of students we write and publish a full novel. My name is Allan Lacoursiere. I'm the moderator.
My name's Tara and I'm 16.
I'm Tyler, age 17.
I am Abel. I am almost 14, only a day away from it. Or so.
Okay, so before we get going, what I want you to do without consulting anybody as part of the lesson today, I want you to write 3 issues that are important to you. They could be political, they could be social justice issues. Don't share your ideas, just write down real quickly 3 and let me know when you're going, when you're finished, and we will get to them. And just let me know when you have that done. Okay, so how are we doing? We're all good?
I think I got some.
Okay. All right. We're going to get back to that in the second part of our lesson when we're talking about censorship. But right now, if you go to, there's a page all by itself. It's called Driving Character or Driving Plot. It should be your last page. And that, oh, you wrote on yours. Oh, that's good. Okay. Okay, what we're talking about here, okay, is when you write a paragraph in your book, it should either drive the plot or drive the character, all right, or reveal part of the character. So, as an example, can I get you, Tara, to read this short paragraph?
Yeah. Allan walked into the library at John Paul II Secondary School and stopped in the doorway. Intrigued by the shelving on the far side of the room, he wondered if it had held any good books. While he would never admit to his friends, Allan loved books and read almost every night. Through the windows beyond the shelves, he could see a second school, where 2 days ago, he and 2 of his friends were chased by a large security guard, barely escaping their lives. Or at least that's how they told it the next day. In the empty space in front of the shelves was a scattered collection of tables and chairs that held little interest until he spotted from Hilda, the girl he had been crushing on for the last 2 years. He slowly sauntered towards her table.
Okay, now look at that. I've described the setting through the eyes of the character, right? Through the character, driving the character. So, what are 3 things about the setting that was in this paragraph? Go ahead.
Allan's a high school student who loves books and he has a crush on a girl named Bloomhill.
Okay, but those are character things. The actual physical setting, I've described it. Okay, what's three things, right? The shelves at the far side from the door,
Windows.
the window beyond the shelves,
And
and
a
what else
table.
is in the library?
And a table.
And tables and chairs scattered about, okay? Now, but I've also revealed 4 or 5 things about the character. You've named some. He's a high school student.
He loves reading.
He loves reading. Okay, but what's something about his love of reading?
He would never tell his friends.
Yeah, so that tells us a couple things about him. One, that he is concerned about what other people think of him, right? Okay, and what about barely escaping with their lives from the overly large security guard?
He is definitely imaginative.
Yeah, like he maybe stretches the truth a bit, right?
Hmm.
So when you're writing in the novel, right, we want to make sure, to create a good character, you want to make sure you are always showing things from the character's point of view, or from a character's point of view. It doesn't have to be the same one, right? And you want to make sure it's driving plot. You don't want to be jumping down bunny trails, like maybe like getting a whole big huge
You don't want to go down the rabbit hole.
backstory of the, you know what I mean? Like, you know, of the character, because you can bring things in as it flows,
Yes.
right? So you can see there's setting. I've done the setting. It's not a separate paragraph about this is the library, blah 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 blah. I've actually accomplished 2 things in 1 paragraph. Go ahead.
This is just a question. What if you spent a few paragraphs describing the character in detail because of certain traits that he had that you needed to explain in detail?
But you should be able to get them in as the story is going through. So,
But it's just like, for example, you want to describe how they look, and but they have a certain aspect. It's really important, but it takes a while to explain.
well, if you are describing how a character looks, you can usually do that. But what you don't want to do is go down a bunny trail. You know, I'm wandering all over here. I've lost the flow of my story. You know, you don't want to go into something like this. You know, when Al was 6, he tripped while being chased by a dog. So that's why he only walks on the grass now. And while he was walking on the grass, he smelled a flower and he got bit by a wasp, and that's why he doesn't like insects or flowers, and that's how come he's gay.
What?
Right? Like, you know, like it's wandering all over the place. You want to maintain your focus, and you want to keep the story going forward. So, you know, usually the first time you introduce a character, you might describe him a little bit physically, if that's important to the story, really. You don't always have to describe your characters physically, because a lot of characterization isn't physical traits,
Leaves
right?
it up to the readers and what they
Yeah,
want.
you can leave a lot up to the reader. And a lot of times characterization is habits, beliefs, you know, do they say something all the time? You know, do they move a certain way? Funny. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, we know what you mean.
and that. So, like here, I drove forward my plot, right? And I explained some of my characterization. I did setting. Go ahead.
I'm talking about going off tangent to explain something. This is something they do in Lord of the Rings a lot. Like an example, in The Hobbit's first chapter, they do that a lot.
Yes, and the thing with modern writing, like you'll find that a lot in, say, things like Dickens, where they used to get paid by the word, so they used a lot of words, right? But now modern writing, because of the modern audience, is more it's more rapid pace, right? A lot of times when you put that in your book, what happens is that people skip over it, right? And that they also unless you're a really good writer, like Tolkien, a lot of new writers tend to get bogged down in that, and their story stops, right? So if you're going along a story path like this, right? So we're going along a story path, and then it's looped like this, right? You can lose your audience, right? You can lose your reader, and you want to be careful, especially at the beginning of your story or the beginning of chapters, like that you're not losing that flow, right? So your flow of your story is going to be more important in modern writing now, right? So you always got to be aware of your flow. Now, if you're doing a saga, okay, like Lord of the Rings, like that, like in fantasy, sometimes you can get away with stuff like that, but there are a lot of writers who, like, even when I read them, and they go on these little wandering trips, I skip ahead till the story starts again, and excuse me, go ahead.
I thought of a style, a way to keep the audience intrigued while thinking of writing another book. This is off topic, but this is something I think relates to writing. Where I thought, beside the main story, whenever the main story is starting to lack and is starting to get lackluster because it has to go away to expand the story, but that part is boring, you put another side story in.
Subplotting is something that, yes, that happens, and you will see it in our book too. Subplots have, it is something that comes, but also they have to relate to the main story. Like,
That's what I was
just
going to say.
just sticking things in is not.
That's what I was going to say, that
Yeah.
it starts on an element of the story that isn't going to get put into the story until like the end of the book, where it's going to become important that you follow.
Yes, and that can happen.
And that's a side story is interesting, so
Yeah.
and it's interesting until a point where it has to fall again, and then the main story gets interesting, so you read that.
Yeah. Now we're gonna read. Now the last 2 pages of this is not relevant, but we're gonna move on to censorship.
I got 2 of these pages.
Oh, okay. I'll get one back because somebody's gonna be missing one. So this is called writer's block. Even fantasy fiction is now offensive. Persecution is endemic in the vicious world of young adult publishing, which is where we're at. So I thought that was important. Why don't you start with the first paragraph? It starts right here.
I can go through the entire thing if you want.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Just take a drink first. It was Lionel Shriver who saw the writing on the wall, giving a keynote speech at the Brisbane Writers' Festival 3 years ago, in which he decried the scourge of modern identity law. Shriver observed that the dogma of cultural appropriation, which demands no less than complete racial segregation in the arts, had not yet wrapped its osseous fingers around the publishing industry. But she warned, quote, "This same sensibility is coming to a bookstore near you. Reader, it has come." Next month, a young Asian American author called Amelia Wen Zhao was due to celebrate the publication of her debut novel, Blood Heir, the first in a 3-part fantasy series for which Zhao is reportedly paid a 6-figure sum by Delacour Press, a children's imprint of Penguin and Random House. Set in the Russian-inspired Cyrillian Empire, Blood Heir tells the story of a magic-wielding princess who is forced to flee her kingdom following her father's murder. Quote, "In a world where the princess is the monster, oppression is blind to skin color, and good and evil exist in shades of gray, comes a dark Anastasia retelling," end quote. The publishers. Before the manuscript had even reached the presses, however, a furor erupted when Zhao, a 26-year-old banker born in Paris and raised in Beijing, was accused of racism. Armed with merely the blurb and a handful of excerpts from the book, her critics, many of them fellow authors, editors and bloggers of the young adult genre, aka YA, repeatedly tore into Zhao on sites such as Twitter and Goodreads, outraged by, among other things, the novel's depiction of indentured labor. For despite Blood Heir's Slavic setting, her detractors assumed the plot was inspired by American slavery, and thus something Zhao had no business writing about because she is not black. In a tirade that might surprise students of Russian antiquity, one critic reportedly raged, quote, "Racist-ass writers, like Amelia Wen Zhao," continued, "literally take black narratives and force it into Russia when that shit never happened in history," end quote. One prominent writer even claimed that the very premise of a fictional world in which, quote, "oppression is blind to skin color," end quote, was racist, and joined others in pillorying Zhao for creating and then killing a black, quote-unquote, character in the novel, no matter that the only discernible evidence for the character's ethnicity was a vague description of dark curls and, quote-unquote, bronze skin. Another YA author, Ellen O., who joined in the fray by piously tweeting, quote, "Color blindness is extremely tone deaf. Learn from this and do better," end quote, was herself forced to issue an apology after being castigated for using the phrase tone deaf, a turn of events that would be comical were it not so preposterous. For Zhao, the onslaught proved too much, and in January she released a statement titled, "To the Book Community, an Apology," in which she confirmed that she had withdrawn Blood Heir from publication. However, in a volte-face last month, Zhao revealed that, with help from multicultural scholars and sensitivity readers, she had rewritten the novel and would now be publishing it in November. Would that Zhao be an outlier? If anything, hers is now a typical experience in the vicious world of YA publishing. Last year, another fantasy novel about a young protagonist rebelling against a sectarian society, inspired by an 8,000-word blog post calling it, quote, "the most dangerous, offensive book I have ever read," end quote, and set off a wave of recrimination against the author on social media. At around the same time, Kyra Drake, a marketing consultant turned YA writer, agreed to pulp hardback copies of her debut fantasy novel and rewrite it with the help from, you guessed it, sensitivity writers after critics claimed it contained damaging depictions of Native Americans. Because this persecution on the most spurious of grounds is endemic, and because so many of its authors are themselves YA authors, plenty of those brandishing the proverbial pitchforks have, upon publication of their own novels, subsequently found themselves staring down the sharp side of a four-pronged rod. In February, Cosco Jackson, a gay, black, erstwhile sensitivity reader who had previously joined in the skirmishes against other authors, pulled his own debut novel, A Place for Wolves, after his peers pronounced it insensitive to Muslims on account of its Albanian Muslim antagonist. Nor is the contagion confined to American authors. Last month, John Boyne, best known for the Holocaust novel The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, received such a barrage of abuse prior to the publication of his latest book, My Brother's Name is Jessica, which features a transgender central character that he was briefly forced off Twitter. Critics labeled the book transphobic, suggesting that because Boyne is not transgender, the story lacked authenticity, and its title misgendered the fictional protagonist. At almost the same moment that Boyne was deleting his Twitter account, Lincolnshire-based Zoe Marriott, a prolific writer of YA fiction, was also being hounded on the site over her new fantasy novel, The Hand, the Eye, and the Heart, because it's set in, quote, fairy tale China, end quote. One prominent YA blogger warned, quote, white authors need to stay the hell away from the stories of people of color, end quote. Curiously, said blogger's day job involves managing the tills at Foyles, one of London's most revered bookshops. Pity the poor sod who dares trouble her for a copy of Othello, or Tolkien for that matter. The father of fantasy fiction has come in criticism for his portrayal of orcs in The Lord of the Rings. Some feel his work is quote-unquote racialized. And what's a sensitive young bookseller to do if a young customer requests C.S. Lewis, whose Narnia books were branded quote-unquote blatantly racist, end quote, and misogynistic by fellow fantasy author Philip Pullman? Pullman has since been labeled quote-unquote transphobic himself after tweeting in October that he was quote-unquote finding the trans argument impossible to follow, end quote. Once you start seeing goblins in fairyland, there's no end to it. Even the most enlightened author can cause offense. It's only a matter of time before it begins to eat away at every genre until Schreiber predicted, quote, all that's left is memoir, end quote. Already poets might understandably feel anxious. Last summer, The Nation, one of America's most venerable literary magazines, published a 14-line poem about homelessness, which was swiftly accused of co-opting a black vernacular and criticized for its use of the word crippled. Instead of defending the verses it had previously deemed worthy of publication, the magazine immediately issued an apology so spineless from one of its own columnists, said it resembled, quote, a letter from a re-education camp, end quote. But it's not just writers who ought to be worried. The logical apogee of a prohibition on cultural intercourse is a future in which each person is allowed to document only his or her precise subjective expertise. A future, in other words, where fiction is history. And that sounds like a very dreary prospect for us all. Anyway.
Okay, now just a couple things I want to say
This
about
is
this
ridiculous.
before we go on and we talk about this briefly. But one thing is, her novel was based on the Chivalric Empire, which is considered their serfdom in Eastern Europe is considered probably the worst human institution ever. Now it went on, it basically, other than about 3 or 4% of the population, everybody was a slave, right? You were bought and sold, you had no rights. It went on longer than slavery did. Didn't end until the 1920s. It impacted way more people, you know, from, you know, Western Europe all the way to China, right? Like, you know, tens of millions of people lived in Russia for, you know, all that time. We're talking about probably over 1,000 years. To assume that something that deals with slavery, which has been going on for 10,000 years, automatically refers to American blacks is pretty arrogant, right? Like, and that, but
Slavery happens with everybody. It happened between people that were in their own country.
yeah, it happened. There's no race
That was,
or
even if you
ethnic
label
group.
people as the people that were enslaved, isn't that itself racist?
and that. No, well, not really, but I'm just saying that. So, like, one thing I want to say, all modern humans are descended from as little as 5,000 people. So, you know, we're basically all cousins, right? And that ethics and morals, they don't exist in nature, you know? Like, while a whale eats millions of krill a day, the krill don't label the whale a mass murderer, and neither do we, right? So ethics and morals are a byproduct of socialization. And because we have neither the hive or pack instinct, you know, human ethics can be complicated and silly, right? Like this, right? This whole thing is kind of silly. In 20 years, what we see as ethical today might be seen as unethical. You know, in 30 years is barbaric, and in 50 is downright inhuman, right? So as writers, our job is to tell a story and try to avoid becoming moralistic mega heroes. We want to keep the principle to write what you know, but when you're writing fantasy or imagination, it's coming from your imagination.
Science fiction,
Right.
for example.
And yeah, or just even any kind of fiction, right? And you have a right to it, right? You know, we are fortunate to live in the most literate period in human history, and every group has its writers, so every group has its voice, right? And that this new type of censorship experienced by modern writers is bad, you know, and like nothing curbs creativity like censorship. Communist Russia gives us a good modern example. Before the communists took over and began to censor Russian writers, Russian literature was some of the most celebrated in the world, right? And during the communist censorship, the only Russian books worth reading, and the only ones that are still read today, were written by the dissidents who thumbed their nose at the censors and who faced jail sentence and exile. Now, look at your list. Start with yours, Abel. What were your 3 topics that, like, 3 issues that were important to you?
I have issues with my sleeping pattern because that is something I have an issue with. I want to fix that. I have issues with presidential and prime ministerial candidates.
Okay.
Because
You have
some of them are very, very, very unequipped to deal with their jobs.
Okay, yeah, let's go. Just, and what's the last one?
And the last one is that one before I read the title is I have issues with book banning and copyright issues.
Okay, so, and what are your issues?
That there's not that much acceptance to the LGBTQ community, and that immigration laws are really bad right now, and gun laws in the States, because I have family in the States.
Okay, and your issues here.
If I had to summarize them, then they would be people are, and these are mostly people problems, so take this with a bit of salt. I find that people are increasingly getting too sensitive, as this article clearly illustrates.
Okay,
Yes, agreed.
People are, to oversimplify, basically ignorant and arrogant.
okay.
And then, for the third point, people do not care. And I know that I know that empathy is like a very, very hard thing to sort of
Yeah.
define, but it's just what I've been seeing.
Okay, so my issues that are important to me are native rights, environmental, and I'm very concerned with the inequity of of money, like, of the fiscal system, and that where 3% of the population of the world have 90% of the wealth, control 90% of the resources. Those things are, very, but if you look, 4 different people here, when we have the full group, there will be more different issues, but different things are important to us. So as writers, we would write about different issues, right? Like, so when we were working on our own personal writing, we would have slants that are based on, they could be personal things, they could be, Tyler here is very concerned with the quality of the ethics of people, I guess you would put it, right?
Ethics and sort of the
you
flow of
have,
information. Yeah.
you know, so you would have, for instance, myself and Tara there might have differing views on immigration, because as environmentalists, I think we are very overpopulated, and that overpopulation is destroying the world. And I think it's also destroying human countries, including Canada, because all we're doing is increasing the density, our population density of where we live, which is bad. So the more dense your population is, the larger your footprint is. Like, your carbon footprint would be larger if there's more of you in one confined. So we might have slightly different things. So when we were writing, we might write on the same topic, but from a different slant. And that diversity is important. It's important for us as humans to grow, right? You know, it's important to creativity, right? Now, one of the things I want to do this year, and everybody's not here, so anybody who's watching this who missed, I want to do a thought experiment, okay, with you guys. Now, a thought experiment is not one that you research. It's not one that you write down, okay? I just want you to think about it, okay? And the reason we're doing this thought experiment is so that as writers, as an exercise as writers, we have to write often two views, because we have a protagonist and an antagonist. And so it's important to try to see both sides of an issue, so that you don't have one plastic character, right? So you can understand the motivation of that character. So in this, now I know everybody's heard a lot about residential school, you've heard it in classrooms, you've heard it in the news. So in this thought experiment, I want you all to imagine that you are the first Prime Minister of a brand new country. Okay? And you've just inherited the obligation from the British of educating Native Canadians. And I just want you to think about, give us some thought, and just think about how you would do it. And when you think you have a good idea, bring it forward after the 4th meeting, when we're finished plotting the book. And we will, I will use my historical knowledge to say what the consequences of your decisions would be. Right? And the whole idea is not to make any judgments, and, you know, not to, it's just to give you some insight, maybe into some motivation of what happened, right? And that, so that if you were writing a book and you have an antagonist, you can think deeper about what their motivations are. So as writers, we really have to have really broad minds, really open minds, because we're everybody, you know? If you're writing a World War II piece, well, you're Hitler, and you're Churchill, and you're, you know what I mean? Like, you're both sides, right? So just think about it. Now we're gonna move on to our book. Our book, for those who don't know, who weren't here, is called Malfunction. And it is about a boy who has what's called alien hand syndrome, which is a very rare
Disorder.
disability, in which usually after an operation in young children, but older people can get it if they had a stroke or something. But one hand, and usually their non-dominant hand, they don't seem to have any control over it. So it could be like if you were buttoning up a shirt with your right hand, your left hand would be unbuttoning the shirt. It might do odd things, like it might, like this, manipulating some device just over and over again, or flying in the air, right? It also might try to hurt the person. Okay? So we're just gonna go, we were talking last, and we will talk more about it next session, but we're using a plot device this year called in media res, which means that the story's gonna start in the middle, and then the second chapter to the 20th chapter is going to bring us up to that point, and then it's going to, after chapter 20, it's going to go on there at that point. And we're going to also use a literary device called an epiphany, and it's where a character has a moment of self-awareness, of total self-awareness. So we're going to have that happen. Now this is the first chapter. It's short on purpose because the first chapter is going to also be the start of the 20th chapter. Okay? So I'll read it and you guys let me know what you think. Something was wrong. Darius could feel it. Not now, he thought. Not in the middle of Dave's prom proposal, excuse me. He held up the "you" in the phrase, "Will you go to the prom with me?" in the middle of some of his closest friends. Around them stood most of the student body of John Paul's secondary school, and even some of the teachers. Second bell had rung, but no one had made a move to go to class. Everyone was waiting for Beth and for this, the first prom proposal of the season, and something was terribly wrong. Dave and Beth were the power couple that dominated every high school. They had been dating since birth, maybe even before conception, and Darius was about to ruin their big moment with half the world watching. Dave and Beth were the couple everyone wanted to be, and even though Dave was 3 years older than Darius, he became Darius's first friend when he came to the new high school in a new city half a continent away from his old one. Their friendship had made him instantly popular at his new school, and it was through Beth that he had met Becky, his first real girlfriend. Now all that was about to end. Slap. The impact of his left hand hitting the side of his face rang in the atrium. The sudden and loud noise drew every eye to him. Now the fluttering would start, when his left hand would slice through the air like an epileptic Egyptian. And then would come the angry fly episode, when his wayward hand would try to pluck out his right eye. He had no choice now but to drop the sign and grab his left hand with his right, visibly wrestling to control it. "Hey!" someone shouted from the balcony above. "Look at Crippled D." There it was, the dreaded nickname from grade school. Darius could feel his status at his new school melt away as if he were physically shrinking. The first sounds of laughter bubbled up from somewhere behind him, but Darius could do nothing to stop it. If he let go of his hand now, he risked serious damage to his eye. He was stuck, wrestling with himself like some meth head on a bad trip, while everyone watched and laughed. His struggles grew so violent, he was all but thrown from his feet, and he staggered to the left through the crowd. How long had this fit lasted? It felt like ages already, and his alien hand showed no sign of giving up his violent struggles anytime soon. Darius could just die. Sometimes he wished he could, and never more so than at this very minute. Embarrassment glowed red from his toes to the top of his head, and still he had no control over his actions. The laughter sounded like cannons now, ripping through his very soul. It felt as if it was peeling his flesh from his bones, as if it would leave nothing left of him but his heartache and shame. He thought some of them were chanting now, "Cripple D, Cripple D." With still only partial control of his left hand, Darius staggered across the atrium and out the front doors. He was never going to come back here again. He would run until he could no longer hear the laughter and taunts. Unfortunately, he was never able to outrun something that would echo in his mind for the rest of his life. There were tears in his eyes now, blurring his vision. He never knew how long the front sidewalk leading from the front doors to the school to the street was until that moment. It felt as if he was halfway around the world and back, stretching on forever with each step resounding with a cruel laugh or a chant of Triple D. Why couldn't he be a normal kid, just for a little while? And for a little while he had, back when he was still able to hide his secret from the world. But that had come to a crashing end back in the atrium at the worst possible moment. One of the few times when the students from both lunches filled the atrium with him at the center of attention. Wiping his eyes, his vision was still blurry when he reached the end of the sidewalk. He was approaching Oxford Street now, a busy city corridor that carried a good portion of the city's traffic through much of the day. Beyond it lay a stretch of soccer fields, and beyond them the distance he was looking to place between himself and the rest of the world. If only his dad hadn't left. His dad would know how to fix this. He'd always had the answers and seemed to be the only one who truly understood. But his dad was gone now, and Darius was all alone. He was still thinking about his father when he ran across the grassy boulevard and out into the street without bothering to look both ways. His ears echoed with the words of their taunt, and his eyes saw nothing beyond the anger and hurt. Cripple D. A horn sounded loud and angry. Darius turned towards his source, startled. A truck was barreling towards him at high speed. Its front grille grew to fill his sight. And that's where it ends. Now, the only thing in this that I have to say, and I wanted to say, is I mentioned alien hand, and I want to just change it to be hand. I don't think we should actually mention what his syndrome is until after the 20th chapter.
Okay, I have two problems with this first chapter, if it's okay if I mention
Go ahead.
it. The first one, this is just a small bug I have every time I read a book, is the inconsistency in name lengths or in name creativity. And I like for the name Darius, I like that because that's interesting, new, and I haven't heard it yet. But then for Dave, Beth, and the other one,
yeah, but we want very common names for them people.
why?
Because they're also they're high school students, right? It's like we don't want to get. Now we can think about names. If you can think of other names, I wanted them both to have the same initials, first initials, on purpose, so we can make that something. You know, like high school couples
Maybe
do.
it doesn't even have to be that much more. Like maybe call him David, and then Dave can be the short version because.
Well, that's fine. We can do that. But if you can think of other names, bring them forward. But I do want to keep the same initials on purpose because I thought we can get something.
I just
down.
want to get that through because they're
No,
cool.
that's fine. And what's the other thing you had?
This is something me and Ben talked about. It's the father dying or leaving.
We decided he would be dead as a group. However, we're not going to say that he's dead right away, right? Until him and his mother have the big fight
It's just
after.
that there's a lot of dead fathers in the media already. That's just the only thing. That's really.
Well, but we discussed this, and that's when we were talking, and we plotted it that way, right? We went away from the father just running away, because that's cliche. The father has a crippled son, he runs away.
But it's also cliche that the father dies.
And
I can like
Yeah.
Skywalker,
but
Paul Atreides.
yeah, we already decided that when we were discussing it last time, we decided that it would be a single mother. In fact, you were the one who brought
I know
up
this
the
is just
single
something
mother.
that Ben mentioned.
And the thing is, something has to happen to the father if there's a single, and we decided that the father was the only one who knew the tricks.
Yeah, but
for
we
him to-
we thought about this. We were thinking about this, but what if the mother was the one that happened this happened to, and then she died, and then the father knew how to help, but he wasn't. He became an alcoholic from depression, and so he couldn't
Okay,
help his son.
but the thing is that we can't keep replotting.
I know,
We gotta go forward to this. We have to plot today 10 to 20, right? Because we gotta go forward. Those are good suggestions, but as working as a group, the group consensus, like, those were the issues that were decided, right?
Okay.
Like I mean, I understand your points, the good points, the valid points, both you and Ben brought up, and that, but we have to start too, right, in the story. And one of the things that a lot of new authors do is they spend all their time plotting. And you know how much writing they get done?
No.
Right. So we had decided that we weren't going to go with the father just running away, because that was cliche, and to the point where it's starting to get sexist. We did decide, even though that is a trope rather than a cliche, that the father dies is actually kind of a trope.
Lesser evil?
We decided to go with that. Yeah, lesser two evils. I was perfectly fine with him having both parents. You know, but I mean, because the big fight with his mother in what was it, chapter 8?
Yeah, it's after me. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm the one that writes the part where he has that daydream about the hand.
Yes.
If the dad died, what if he had like an older sister? That like he had an older sister that he was very close to instead of his dad. And she
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be that way.
That would actually be interesting.
We could do that. Now we'd have to replot.
Yeah.
A large part of the book.
You know, we were quarter way into it, but we could do that. And because the other ones are not there, vote on it. Sister dies instead of the father. No, you don't like that.
No, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really see the point in including a sister quite right now, though. I'm fine with the father dying. I just I feel like it's very difficult. I feel like it will be difficult, rather, to try and include a sibling for
That's right.
help.
That is
Yeah.
true.
So,
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we have so far, I don't have access to it, but it's on the drive. We've got 10 chapters there. From the research, what we've determined is that the best way for him to have acquired this disability was that at one point as a very young child, he had that operation for epilepsy where they separate the hemispheres of the brain.
Oh, that's better than what I just thought of.
And because with young people, pretty well, the only way they get it is through having a brain operation. And that's the most, let's not put the umbrella in the
Yeah, sorry.
picture.
Let's have this thing.
Okay, so we were at the point, he's met Becky, he started to date her. In one of the chapters, he's on a date with her, and his hand starts doing this thing.
Can we
And-
change the name of Becky?
Well,
I
it's
don't
gotta
know.
start with a B.
Yeah, alright. Why does it have to start with the B?
Because we wanted
now I
the,
get it,
because
now I
the
get it,
power
because-
couple is DB, and they're little DB, or whatever.
Okay, so a name that starts with a B and that's a girl name. Okay, I'll think of it. Okay.
Okay.
I'll think
But,
of names.
okay, we'll talk about the names that,
Yeah, we could literally just go with like Alpha Bravo and then Alpha Bravo Charlie.
like we did last time. What did we call our main character? Was Charlie or something?
Maria.
Maria, but what did we call the guy
Oh.
at first? We
Keith,
Chad.
Chadwick the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
you
think
got
it sounded
Kit, it started.
Okay.
So,
it started
can
Kit.
everybody tell me what grade they're in?
12.
11.
Oh, you're about to graduate. This year you're graduating.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
How do you mean, hopefully?
Ian Chadwick.
Yeah. Yeah, just because we just came up with names.
Yeah.
So at this point, you know what? I
Oh.
forgot, and I should have.
Alright, just a second. Just a second.
Can someone pull up OneDrive on their phone?
I just did.
Can you go to our
In the.
yeah just the last couple of chapters, just briefly to where we were, because we got to chapter 10 with all the ideas. And that.
What's the general plot so far from?
Okay, so he's come to the new school. The first chapter is this: he just about to get smucked by a truck, right? And then, then he comes to the school. His mother and Dave's mother arranged for Dave to bring him to the school, right? And because he's with Dave, he starts to get popular. So, okay, yeah, it turned off on me. Then he doesn't tell anybody about his hand, so he's hiding it, right? So there's a point in one day, and he's in class, and his hand is acting up, right? So he has it under the desk, and it's banging the desk away. He's just pretending he's being annoying to get out of class. And when everybody asks, he says, "Oh, I just wanted to smoke," right? And it happens a couple times. He gets into the principal's office, a meeting with his mother. His mother starts to tell the principal about what's wrong with his hand. He blows up at her before she actually gets it out, and then we follow him running away from the school again, right? Like storming out, right? Like he starts to date Becky, who he meets through Dave and Beth, right? We do have him. He start like after his date with Becky when his hand's acting up, and he's pretending that he's air drumming, like to, because his hand's doing all this kind of stuff. And then when he gets her to pretend she's air drumming, he pretends he's doing some crazy dance to hide his hand. But that night he dreams that was it Jason from Nightmare on Elm Street? Like
It's Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, one of them anyways, whatever.
One of them.
Well, it doesn't matter. He
One of
dreams
those people.
He's
I don't know
fighting
which.
one of them, right? Well, it's written down, right? But it's either Jason or Freddy. And,
I think
and
that's
he chops
Freddy.
his hand off and he says, "Ah, you only made me stronger." And then he wakes up. And then a couple days later, he's in the
That's the part I'm writing.
he's in the shop classes, shop teachers doing all that safety about. You got to be careful with these saws, or you chop off a hand or something, right?
I already got the chapter planned out pretty much.
And he's daydreaming about that, right? Yep.
I should probably save that for for when we actually write the shop. For when we actually write the shop chapter, but can we say that there are safety mechanisms for the tools? Like, for example, if I stuck my finger near a saw, would it automatically stop, or
Not. There are certain things like guides and stuff, but yeah, with saws and stuff, you actually can.
There's usually a plastic cover that you have
Yeah.
to lift up.
Like,
You
yeah.
have to click up. You
Yeah.
have to push a button as you're doing something.
Yeah. But if you're not watching, you can. And nothing happens. He just daydreams because he's got this obsession that if he gets rid of his hand, his life goes.
So does he just
normal.
sort of rationalize and think? Wait,
Yeah,
no,
he's
this is
saying,
stupid.
what if I, yeah, well, he's just sort of, ooh, can I do this? Like, oh, this will hurt, right? Like, but this will solve all my problems, right?
Anyway, back to the.
Yeah. So, from 11 to 20, what we want is, things are getting harder to control. Yes.
After we're done reviewing the chapters, I want to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, this is this is something.
I'm just saying, from 11 to 20, two things have to be happening here, right? He's got to be becoming more popular at the school,
And more character development between characters.
and it's your whole book is that. So he's got to become more popular, right?
Yes.
But it's got to be getting harder for him to control his hand. Now, what he has is he's got, what they do as a trick is they have something that they can play with in their hand, you know? And he's got this thing from his father, it's like a rubber troll on a keychain, right? Now, in chapter 19, what has to happen is Becky takes it, right? Not knowing what it is or what it's for. Becky says, I want this, and you know, and he gives it to her, so that when he's 20 happens, and the thing in the atrium happens, he doesn't have it, and he hasn't had it for like a day, and that's why he has such a poor vet, right? So, one thing we know that has to happen is in 19 that takes his troll keychain.
Yeah, it could be a whole subplot of maybe it could be in that chapter that he goes on another date with Becky and he can't get any presents for her or something, and maybe like that he finds.
Or you know what? She should take it earlier, talking about subplot, and he should be trying to get it back,
That would be interesting. Yes.
right? Or it could be in the same chapter, right?
Yeah, maybe
She
in
takes
that-
the keychain,
and
and
keeps
he's
looking
trying to
for
get it back.
And trying to get it.
He's
Yeah.
trying to get it back. You know, like how, and because he's supposed to be young, and young people when they date, or even start like liking, you know, they might grab something of the other person, and you know, because that starts a wrestling match, you know, like, you know what I'm talking, you see it all the time, right? And that,
So my friend's doing it today.
yeah, like, you know, because they like each other and stuff. So when
yes.
he's trying to get it back, it always ends up with like a wrestling match, and she always has it back at the end, right? That all can be in one chapter. That'd be great. And yeah, and that's good motivation. He has no money to buy her something.
Yeah.
All right. So we're working backwards.
Now chapter 18. What we need an event that leads up to that.
Yeah.
Maybe-
Okay.
Maybe it's a chapter.
Well,
planning
you know
thing.
what?
Wait. I have an idea.
Okay, go ahead.
What if in that chapter, to establish friendship with Dave, Dave helps him arrange the date, and then in return, Darius will help arrange Dave the prom proposal, so it has a good tie-in with later events.
Okay. So, but let's also, Dave and Darius are together,
Yeah. And Darius.
and he buys like the roses and all that for the prom proposals, right?
That's why he doesn't have any money, because he uses his allowance on buying roses for the prom.
Okay, and borrows money from Darius,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's why he doesn't have money.
Okay.
And then in return for letting him borrow the money, he tells him a good place for the date to happen or something.
Okay, but now, Becky, Beth,
Yeah, it's
Beth lets him know that Becky wants something too, right?
yeah.
All right. Oh, no, this is what happens, because to tie in like you said, because remember we said that Beth is going to invite Darius as her significant other, and Dave was going to invite Becky so they could come to the prom too,
Yeah.
right? How about Beth teases him about making his own prom proposal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So he feels obligated to get Becky something.
Yeah.
Does that sound good? Does
Yeah.
that sound like
Yeah.
it? All right.
That sounds reasonable.
So that leads to, and we know what's happening in 20, because 20 is continues.
Chapter 17. Let's think of that.
And this is all happening in the scope of
A few months.
1 year? Or
Yeah, this is all like leading up to prom.
and, yeah.
When do they start prom proposals? Like usually right after Christmas sometime, right?
Oh, that's not a lot of time to develop character at all.
This all
there's
has
a
to
lot you
happen.
have to do.
This all has to happen in 1 year, and remember, he's got to still spend a couple months in the hospital.
Prom is
Or-
around April.
Yeah, but prom proposals start.
Oh, prom proposal.
Like
Those start
maybe
way
Do
earlier.
like February,
February.
around like.
That would be way
All right,
Valentine's
so
Day.
February. So say he's in the hospital till mid-March,
Mhm.
right? And that's time for him to come back. And okay, all right. So
And maybe after the prom is that
So-
scene where he finally becomes accepted.
yeah, and he accepts, and he has his epiphany moment.
And
Pretty well
he
at the-
becomes accepted as
And
well.
how we can do that is, you know, they have the different lights at the prom, right? So when a character has the epiphany, they're usually bathed in light from some source, like sunlight, light, whatever. We'd have like a spotlight on him when he has his moment of epiphany, right?
Okay. Yep.
You know,
That works.
you know, because they do that, right? When you're coming in, or when you're dancing, or whatever, right? Now we want
Chapter 17.
something's got to be going on with his hand in 17.
What if in chapter 17 he smacks the teacher? Or maybe something less extreme?
No, that'd be a little extreme, because that would most
lot of
likely get him
attention.
kicked right out of the school
What
board,
if he's
like
trying to
never
write
in court.
and his other hand grabs the pencil and throws it? That would get him in trouble, but not too much.
Okay. And because it repeats that stuff, it keeps doing it.
Goes
So
picks
he's
it up.
going that, and then
Yeah.
he picks it up, the teacher scolds him, and it goes across. And you know what? It can go really, what if it's writing a test? Right?
Yeah. And then the teacher just thinks he's trying to get out of the test.
Yeah, and hand keeps throwing.
Talking about a test, I'm having a test tomorrow.
Oh, yeah? Good luck with
great
that.
world example. We're talking about somebody failing in test. Well, having a test coming up the next day. Not the that's called foreshadowing.
Yeah, and we're not going to foreshadow you
I hope
failing the
not.
test. In fact, we're foreshadowing that despite this happening, you get a perfect.
I hope. Because math has not been my best course so far.
It's been quite the opposite for me. Well, what's your sort of good subject?
Well, normally science and math and stuff like that is. But this year I had a lot of trouble with math for some reason.
No, well,
I know how to do the things, but I always do them incorrectly for some reason.
no,
Oh yeah.
that happens.
I know what I'm doing. I know what the answer is, but then I forget it and do something, a minor mistake, a rookie mistake I know I shouldn't do, but I'm too tired or something because of my sleeping schedule problem.
Be careful about your signs.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
Take your
Don't even
time.
talk about the signs.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Be patient.
I'm good with English, not math.
There is one big glaring point that I want to talk about, and I'd like to save it for when I've actually plotted it out.
And what's that? Go ahead.
What sort of person is Darius? What sort of person did we want him to be?
Well, the major thing with Darius is he is afraid of what other people will think about him because of
Insecure.
but the truth is, and the truth he's going to realize in his epiphany, is the one who's not accepting his disability
Is him.
is him. Right? So when he's in the hospital and Becky, his girlfriend, arranges for all his friends to come.
Wait, now I think it's time to address the thing I want to talk about. Voting on the name of the girlfriend, because I came up with a bunch of names, and I really, really do not want the name to be Becky for some reason.
Well, throw a name, but it's got to start with B.
I listed a bunch of names with a B. Briella. Anyone like that?
No,
Brione.
no. Brienne, though.
Brienne sounds good. Bubbles.
No. Bubbles would be really.
Bubbles would be a nickname.
Yeah, and it would be really sexist.
Oh yeah, true that.
Yeah,
Okay,
and,
just naming names.
We would probably get beat up by half the girls in the school. And she was already like sharpening her knife to come after us, I could see.
My pencil in lead fell and putting it back in.
Okay, well, how about Brie? Like Brienne Brie?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
And yeah, that
So,
sounds good.
okay, that's fine. So, where's Becky? Okay.
Yeah, that
So-
can be the code name, and then the real name is Brienne or Brie.
Yeah. So,
I just really didn't want the name Becky because I know so many people called Becky,
no, that's fine.
and I don't
And
know
that-
anybody named Brienne.
One of the things we have to do is do characters, sketches.
Ooh,
Yeah, that's fine.
Because
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
people said they had problems.
I could see if I could get. I have a bunch of friends who are in art programs. I can see if they.
I do art too. I do art for there's
Oh
there's
no,
something
but
else.
I don't
do.
want sketches. When I say character sketches,
Oh, you mean like written up?
written up.
Or I can
This
just look
person
up
does this. This person,
Also, character profile.
like a profile,
Yeah.
yeah. But they're called sketches. But
That's a very strange name.
When I think of character sketch, I
I
think
think
of
of
like
somebody
concept art.
Drawing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the concept
oh,
art.
but
That's what I think of.
yeah. Well,
Also-
one of the original terms of sketching.
Also, I came up
was,
also with some names for Dave, David Davis.
Maybe later.
Like his nickname could be Dave, but he's introduced as Dave Davis or something like that. Daniel maybe.
well, his name could be Daniel.
Daenerys, something like that.
No,
My
let's not
dad's
go
name
there.
is Dan, and in high school he went by Danny, and now he goes by Dan. So
Okay,
it's
why
like-
don't we say Danny?
That sounds good. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. I
Dave
don't
is
know
Danny.
anybody named Danny. That's a good one. Yes.
Okay, Danny boy.
I know that.
Danny Daenerys.
Life's fights.
Dang it! I know somebody named Danny, but I don't mind this reference because I like Danny DeVito.
Mm-hmm. All right, so, and we're keeping Beth. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. I don't think you could come up with any other girl.
You know,
named
it's
Eve.
really hard to find a name that's not the
Yeah,
name
that's
of
what I had
somebody in
problem-
this school.
I had problems with.
Remember the random name generator I had
Yeah.
I suggested for last year?
Yeah.
You could use that.
Yeah, I had so much trouble getting a good name for.
Look at, I
this
had to
thing
go
I'm
for
doing.
Broomhilda.
Brunhild.
Do you guys know who Broomhilda is?
I vaguely know of Brynhild.
Broomhilda was a cartoon witch from the Saturday morning, comics. She's 1,200 years old. She has warts, and she has that green, wrinkly skin that all guys just love.
I'm sorry, I'm not good with that, but I'm good if you talk about Woody the Woodpecker because I know that.
But this was like on, the comics that came in the paper.
Yeah,
She was one of the big
those are my
ones.
favorite part
Like
of the
Garfield
paper.
nowadays.
Yeah, she was a big one. So I didn't know because they've really cut back on the comics. I don't even think they do that color comics section on Saturday.
No, they do.
Nope, they don't do
Great.
4 panels anymore.
Yeah. They used to have
Funny section is.
the funny section. It was like a whole section in the paper. It
Yeah.
had like,
Well, most
Maybe
people don't
12.
even read newspapers anymore.
I only read the comics.
oh,
I read the
we
political
fought
parts.
over, there was 4 kids and we fought over the comics
I
section.
always read them first because I could read better than my sister.
Oh yeah, and you're
Dad
the
reads
oldest,
book.
right?
I'm the oldest.
My brother doesn't even know how to read properly and write
Right.
either because we are pretty much convinced that he's both dyslexic and dysgraphic like my father.
So, okay, so where we need to get now at 16
Wait. I
is
thought of
something
something.
that
I
makes
thought of
them
something.
popular.
I thought of something that would make it interesting. What if alongside the friends like Danny, Beth, and Bree, there are also a bunch of fake friends.
So
Like friends that are only
acquaintances.
friends friends that are only friends with him because he's popular, but he doesn't realize that until he becomes unpopular and then they just ditch him.
Yeah, but I thought the whole point was he never does come unpopular.
What?
Yeah.
Like he doesn't become
It's all in
that,
his
that
head.
popular.
So-
Oh yeah, like
It's all in his head, right?
like
Like everybody laughed in the atrium, but nobody actually yells out "Crippled D."
and most of them like
They laughed because they thought he was acting up to.
And then
the
after they
comic,
realized,
right?
then after they saw that he's running out crying, they're like, "Oops!"
After he gets smucked with the truck,
They're like, "Oh,
that's
dear.
when everybody figures out, like
something's going on."
like
here."
that's when they hear, oh, his hand.
Yeah, no, query number 2, because that seems something like no group of people would, for say 6 months, look at this person and think and just be some sort of monotonous laugh track. Like is there any way to write it so that
They're
PTSD.
laughing because
The
they
leader
think
can-
he,
yeah.
like, they're laughing
Because they think
because
he's
they
doing-
think he's doing it to be funny.
Yes, because some people
And
in
maybe
class
even-
act
and maybe
different.
even-
They
like-
think he's being the class clown,
And
right?
maybe,
Because he's been building that reputation, throwing the pan.
and maybe
Just
and
go
maybe
have a
Danny
smoke,
and Beth are
right?
also
Like-
in it, like, and he is like, and it said he's like, when he's in the hospital, he's just thinking
It's
that
when-
I ruined the proposal while he made
Yeah,
it a
no,
lot
it's
better.
when Becky, his girlfriend,
His Becky, his
Five-
name
five-
is Bree. It's now Bree.
Brianna, his girlfriend, finds out that it's a problem with his hand that he's been hiding. And she does the intervention, remember?
Yeah.
People don't care, we like you, right?
Yeah.
Just think about it. We got this guy came to school last year, Andre, just a shrimp. Like he was the smallest guy in school. And
Oh, yeah, I
you-
went to elementary school with him.
yeah, and just everybody thought he was gonna get stomped on
Oh no.
because he's got a mouth, right?
Yeah.
Like at first day, I thought two of the grade 12s were gonna tear him apart because one of them says "get to class" to him and his friend, and he just turned and said "fuck off," and I thought that was it, right? And these guys were like bigger than me, like they were 6 something, right? And I thought that's it.
I never met
And
people like that.
he
Kid.
is one of the most popular kids in
He
school
was like that in elementary school as well.
because, and on top of that, he is darn good at basketball.
Yeah.
And he's like he's so small, but apparently he's fast
He is.
and
yeah, he
really
always
good
did
with
really
the-
well in track and field.
and he's really good with the ball, right?
I mean, the
you
only
know,
problem I meet here is a bunch of people getting high in the bathrooms.
and, well, they're not actually getting high; they're vaping.
Oh
Yeah.
no,
That's it.
I have seen somebody with a needle there.
And not in this school. We don't have any. We might have a diabetic or two in this school, but we
Oh.
have.
Oh, then
No.
that's what they were doing. Though.
We don't have any serious drugs in here. I know exactly what they do, and we have no pills, and we have no.
So it's just somebody.
We
taking
do
the
have
diabetic
marijuana
medicine.
around, but they're pretty good at keeping it off property.
Yeah, because they don't
And,
want to get caught.
Well, because I also got an agreement with them, you know, and that, so
Are there gangs in this school?
not really.
I don't
No,
think so, no.
no.
There's more cliques than gangs.
Yeah.
There's
Cliques,
cliques.
yes.
There's cliques in every school. We don't have.
I have my own clique.
This is not like. We're not like American.
Stereotypical.
Yeah, it's not like the archetypal
I know, it's
segregation of jocks, nerds, geeks. It's sort of a
No.
blend.
It's a mosh pit.
Yeah.
It's like this weird banana smoothie of
Yeah.
of,
I mean,
personalities.
I'm only saying this because I have experiences like that because I'm from Romania.
Mhm.
Yep,
From
we could
Transylvania, from the Hungarian part.
Oh, that part we couldn't tell.
I'm Hungarian German.
Mhm.
And so there, the high schools are a lot like the American high schools,
Mm.
except a lot more drugs.
Yeah. Well, we're not innocent.
No.
Nobody
and
is
now we're not
nowadays.
innocent. A lot of the older kids drink. Marijuana is pretty big.
But overall,
there are
it's a lot more
few
docile.
who
No?
take. Yeah, there are a few who will take some pills, but they will not bring them on campus because.
Now we got all of that on camera.
And
Hooray.
well, that's okay because
No
this
names
is
now.
that's not something that's a secret.
Yeah.
Okay,
No secrets.
that's not something that the staff is unaware of, because that's been high school since the '60s.
Oh,
It's
dear.
been high school when your parents were in high school, when I was in high school.
And my friends are in high school as well.
Our concern is that we keep
the
this
drugs
safe.
and stuff.
We like this is the safe zone.
Now, can
So-
I tell you something out of honesty?
Mhm.
Sure.
This is the first day of going to high school here. So I got into the car so we could go there, and I was gonna get a drink from my water bottle. But what I didn't know is my dad filled it with wine,
Oh, yeah.
and so I chugged half of it before realizing that it was wine. And so I was intoxicated when I came here by complete accident.
So how was the hangover?
Oh yeah. Oh, believe me, the walls were melting.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it felt like it. Jeez.
Yeah.
That was
But anyways, the idea here is this is a safe environment, the school. It's neutral grounds. Everybody will be here safe. Like even fighting on campus, like
I like how
And,
calm it is
we've
when we have
had
conversations
3
here.
fights in 3 years on property. Last year we had 0 on property.
But the year before that, was there 1 or 2?
There was 2,
Yeah.
and we had 1 this year, but I wasn't here. so-
Already?
Yeah, first day.
Who were
I heard
fighting?
about that.
A couple of girls.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard about that.
But
not school
so
politics yet.
it's like we do a good job. We get that there, and one of the things, the way we do it, is things like this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that. So we were at 16, and we needed him to something that shows that he's getting more popular.
What if?
Is he
Maybe.
popular because of subjects or because of what he does outside of the subjects?
I think, yeah, not from his classroom. He's socially.
He gets invited to a big party.
Yeah. Okay. So, how about him and Brianna?
Yes,
You
you
can just put
remember.
in G. You can just put it in.
I'm just gonna say Bree.
Yeah, that's a good name.
Get invited to the senior party,
Yeah.
right? Even though he's only a junior, right?
Mhm.
They're juniors, they get invited to the senior party, right? So we'll have to make it up. Like, I know last year there was one of the students who lived out of town, and they often had the parties. Like you had your cast party at his place.
Oh, yep.
Yep. So the big senior parties were usually at his place,
Yeah,
which is
that makes
on a
sense.
farm.
Yep.
So I'm thinking something like that, big bonfire,
Yeah.
would be a good scenario.
I will probably never get invited to one of those.
And that, well,
I don't go. It's too much for me. I don't go to the cast party.
But that's what I
you,
mean.
you didn't go to the cast
No,
party?
I didn't go in grade 9. I didn't go in grade 10.
Oh,
I had no idea there was a cast party until just this lunch.
yeah.
Oh.
Because I was talking at lunch and somebody mentioned a cast party and then I was perplexed, just like, there's a cast party? There was a cast
Well,
party?
you know what? This
There's
year you
like a lot
guys,
of
you
alcohol
gotta
and-
come because I'm gonna work on the play with you, and I'm
Really?
coming. Yes.
A play? What?
Every
working
year
on
we
the play.
our
Yeah,
school hosts a
okay.
play.
Yes, I'm gonna work on the
Oh.
play
You can
with you
audition
guys,
and then you can sing.
I'm coming to cast party.
I'm not going
Okay,
to.
maybe I'll come then.
Yeah, I'll bring you
Kim
guys
and I-
along.
That's
Kim
fine.
always
I'll
said
just
that I
come
could
so
stand
I
in the
just
corner
know
and
what
be
it's
the
what a
only sober
cast
person
party
there.
is.
Yeah, well,
That's fine. Oh, for the play or for the cast party?
I don't know
will
what a cast party is, so I want
It's
to
just
find
a
out.
party where the entire cast of the play all get together and we just have a giant party.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking gonna be good.
There's also.
I mean, what play are we gonna be doing
You
this
know
year?
I don't know
what? You
yet.
know what? You should be in the play.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's got the
Starting
he's
in
got the dramatic force,
11,
Yeah.
they went out
Yeah.
because most of our writers are in the play.
Yeah, that is
That
true. A lot
we want
of
to draw on their experience, right? So chapter 11, they all try out.
for the play, and they all get in.
Well, 3 out of 4 of them.
What play should we do?
Play.
We could do Footloose like last year.
Oh
You know
no,
what?
Please,
you know what?
I really did not
You know
like
what
that.
I'd like to do? I tell you, I saw the most awesome thing on YouTube.
Mhm.
It was a high school play. They did a serious play, and it was better than Broadway. It was better than
Yeah. What
Hollywood.
play was it?
I don't know what play they were doing. I just because it was just a scene from them, and it was just gripping. But it was a serious drama.
Yeah.
And since we always do musical, we should probably have them do a drama.
Oh, I like so many plays because I've been to so many. I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That was amazing.
Was it the musical or was it the?
It was the musical version.
Maybe that's what we should do this year.
And that.
The Hunchback of Notre Dame is amazing.
Okay, you know what? Let's have them do Jesus Christ Superstar.
That's what
Oh.
Carrington really wants to do. but Mr.
Since
Morrison
grade
said
5,
no.
my classmates have been harassing me by singing Jesus Christ Superstar whenever we read the Bible. And every time Jesus comes up, they're like, Jesus Christ
All right, they can.
Superstar.
And he can have a big role like Judas or something.
Yeah.
Oh, being Judas would be a good literary
Yep.
definition of
And
himself.
but that would be kind of him as Judas would be a kind of
Fitting? Thematical?
yeah like
The betrayer
not
of himself.
metaphorical, but
It's like
it would
he's
be
a betrayer, but in Jew senses, like Judas was the betrayer of a physical person, and Darius is a betrayer of himself
of himself, yeah, but also not trusting his friends.
Yeah.
He's keeping the secret from his friends, right?
Yeah, so he can definitely be Judas.
So we'll work in the play from 12, the 4 chapters left. What we'll do is we'll work in the play, things about the practice of the play. We'll have his hand act up at one point. Because maybe whoever's directing the play says, do you have to hold that in your hand all the time? Right?
What if then that's how at one point Bree gets it? Because she's like, oh, go put it in your bag. And,
Yeah.
Or she'll go put it in her bag. so
Yeah,
she'll give
like
it
that
back, and she never
can be her. She starts playing with it.
Mhm.
Right? So on 12 during practice, his troll
This troll keychain thing falls out.
Or during the actual
goes to
performance, Bree could use it to
The
like.
performance doesn't happen until it should happen like at chapter 15 or so.
Yeah, so then like if you
well,
want it.
should we have the performance happen
Yeah,
before
maybe.
he gets smacked? Because
Yeah,
when
I
did you guys didn't actually do your performance till
April.
April,
We auditioned
yeah.
in
Early February?
February.
No, we started in late January. We started in early February.
Yeah.
because I know actually you guys were doing play stuff
It was
Like-
earlier than that. It was
Yeah,
around,
it
like
was like
December or November. I'm
November
sure
because I was
auditions in
fighting
November.
with them to have
Yep.
you guys here to so
Oh,
Bree
yeah.
gets
Mea culpa.
yeah. And then, so what I'm going to do with 13 and 14, with the other stuff that's going around, the troll goes back and forth between Bree and,
Sounds good to me.
right?
Mhm.
And that, but other things will happen with the play and class and stuff. And so he should have some kind of fit on stage, right? In 12, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have it.
He floats up some line and then eventually it ramps up from there.
Oh, his hand should just be doing something weird,
Okay.
right? Like,
Maybe it's where the hanging scene of Jesus.
it just, I don't know, he keeps
Like maybe
pulling
it's
the
the
curtain
scene where
down or something, right?
Like maybe it's the part where Judas hangs himself.
And then-
I mean, that could be interpreted as, oh, he's really getting into character. He's flailing around like as if he was being lynched.
And then the hand is actually choking him.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting
Yeah,
thing.
right, like, yeah, but something minor that he can cover
I thought
up, but
Like
like
the Judas
something
thing.
something he can cover up.
Like the
Because
Judas hanging
it's
scene.
not it's not.
I mean, the Judas hanging scene would be appropriate, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
What
but
if-
I don't want him like choking himself.
Like maybe he's not
I
even
don't.
choke.
I
Maybe he's
wanted
not
a
even
minor fit, right?
It's like not even the choking part. Maybe he is. His
Is
hand
there
just always trying
is
to-
there a part in it, like with wardrobe or something? 'Cause
No,
the
Genius
hand
only
would
appears
be-
in only a handful of scenes. I remember because we have to watch it 3 times in the month.
No.
And,
Anyway, about the wardrobe comment.
Yeah. Well, the thing is with the hand, right? When it's like this, it'll manipulate things, right? So it would be constantly,
So like a
Like,
zipper.
whatever, right? A zipper or like pushing a button.
What if it's
constant-
filling with his microphone?
Yeah,
Is
it's
that
my,
something that causes like feedback and
yeah. He does it all the time. It's a compulsion, right? But it's also like you have, it's like the hand doesn't belong to you.
mm-hmm.
That's why it's called alien hand syndrome. So, I think we've got up to 20
Basically done.
basically done. I think we've done.
And
good.
it's almost 2 hours of record. Well, no, it's an hour and a half.
Okay. Well, we're getting a little. Can someone sign that out?
Stop it.
Yeah, I think. Thank you very much for joining us today. We went a little bit longer than normal, and we were a little short-handed. For
Talking
those
about
of
a
you
lot of
who
off
missed
topic
it,
stuff.
I hope you're watching this so you can catch up. And remember, you're supposed to be here on Wednesdays. All right.
See you next time.
Bye.
See you then. Bye-bye.